John got killed in September, but I still went ahead with this party. Everybody came. It was very emotional, but John, he loved to dance, he loved to sing. Everybody came. We had it was in the men in Motown, everything. Very emotional, but it was good that. But we never want to forget the people that have gone. Patty thinks you're going to feel their presence, that you're just searching because you miss them so much. We're privileged that we knew John, that John loved me and he was in my life, and that I'm very grateful for.
On Friday the 28th of April, Anne Mackay should be celebrating her wedding anniversary. Instead, she will be attending a Workers' Memorial Day event in her native Scotland. She'll be there to remember her husband John, who, together with Tommy Williams, died in a horrific accident at the former Teesworks facility in Redcar back on the 19th of September 2019. 3 years and 7 months after John and Tommy died, Anne Mackay is still waiting for answers. She knows how her husband died, but she has no idea why. Now, I normally edit these recordings to keep them concise, to remove the chaff and just leave the wheat, and to shuffle the order to make the story flow a little better. Not on this occasion. For one thing, I wanted to allow Anne the time and the space to tell her story. But far more than that, who am I to decide what's important in the story of Anne and John Mackay? So this is Anne Mackay.
Obviously, on Friday, I've been going every year to the memorial. There's one quite close to me, and it's also my wedding anniversary. It falls on my wedding anniversary as well, and I go with John's sister. The two of us obviously will go and the wreaths, etc. And it's touching to hear the stories that everybody has about people that have lost their lives or lost their lives through work. So they're very supportive. I were married for 2.5 years, and then he was obviously killed. Just show my wee wedding photo here. Don't you can see it? See, that's not already. Got married in 2017, so the 28th of April. And yeah, obviously, then John chased his jobs and started working for nationwide platforms. We were just, I had 2 jobs before John was killed. I was also working for the agency, but I've never worked again for the agency since John's been killed. We were about to get the keys for this place here. We had 6 days to go. John was obviously down in Redcar, so I had phoned him. He phoned me at 1:20 for 10 minutes, and then half an hour later he was killed. We were discussing about we're going to start our packing on the next again day because we were going to get the keys for this place for spot. Well, I had seal hadn't gone through the following week, and it all fell through. But I still managed to get the house that we wanted. Well, it's a sort of like a 2-bedroom flat sort of thing. So yeah. That day itself was strange because I was on a night shift and John had been away a couple of days. The date itself, we're signing like for the drugs. Oh, a strange date. 2019 to the 9th, 2019. It's such a strange date itself. And then I tried to get John and I used to always message each other in the morning or phone, but I actually missed him. So I tried to phone him on the way home, but he was obviously down at that site and he wasn't going to take his phone on site, etc. So then I got a phone call from him. Then later on, when I got the phone call from John's employers, I'd been speaking to the solicitor earlier on. We're on night shift, you're a wee bit disorientated. So when I heard it was nationwide platforms, I thought it was something to do with the mortgage or something. I don't know why. And then they said there'd been a gas explosion in Redcar, etc. And at first I thought it was to do with a Redcar, with obviously the English accent, etc. I was aware of it. And I don't know why, but I didn't think it was that serious. I really don't know why. Probably because you just don't think something's going to happen to your husband. He just seemed invincible to me. So I remember phoning my 2 sons and saying to them, oh, there's been some sort of gas explosion thing in my car or something. And then when they phoned me back, just something, I was getting ready and etc. And I could tell by the voice there was something not right. And I said, has John been killed? Is John dead? And when she said yes, I'll never forget, it was at the end of my bed. I threw the phone, my legs actually gave way. How you see it in the movies? Honestly, the room started spinning. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So then I did phone them back a wee while later, and they said to me that John had been cut through a gas pipe and that John was dead, but he was in the James Cook Hospital. And so all my family came round immediately. You know, got a fantastic family, very supportive. And John's family, very supportive. The John comes from a community that he was so well loved. You know, I don't know if you know, but if you become to little small communities, you know, like we, like estates and that, everyone's really close in small communities. So everyone knew each other. And then it was later that night when the police came that they told me that John was still in the basket along with Tommy. And then it was now going to be like a major incident because I thought that the towers were actually going to, the ammonia tower was going to collapse because it was for the heat, etc. As soon as John's body was brought back up, that's when I went back. I went down to the site. I went down with my sons and also went down with John's best friend. Like, they've known each other since we're 5, and his wife. We went down to the site. So when John's work, he came up to visit me as well.
How did that breakdown in communications happen? They thought that he was at the hospital when in actual fact he was nowhere near it.
I really don't know. I don't know how that happened. I think to nationwide platforms, obviously they said they've in 29 years and never had a death. So it's obviously something that's really unusual. Death is unusual, obviously. So I just think the way it was all handled, nobody really knew how to deal with it. And apparently the girl shouldn't have really told me on the phone. I was on my own. I did get a shock. But in hindsight, I'm glad I found out then, to be honest with you, there is no easy way to find out your husband's been killed, is there? What was the girl going to say? Lie? Do you know what I mean? So in that sense, I was glad she told me. At the time, I think probably your emotions, when I spoke to you the last time, a lot of, when you first grieving, a lot is a blur. I'm a different person. Even through, you know, when you've lost your husband, through any circumstance, but through work and all the struggles I've had with the police and everything, has changed me as a person. I don't still the same person I used to be. I'm still John's wife, and I feel I've let John down a lot because I feel I've not got explanations, I've not got answers. I know how John was killed, but I don't know why. And it's a constant struggle to get answers. I feel I've turned into a private investigator myself. I'm either, LinkedIn, I've Googled things, I've been down to the site things, I've got in touch with people that worked here, I found out things even when I was visiting. For example, I remember reading that they couldn't gain entrance to the site at South Bank. You know, the fire engines couldn't get in, the fire officer actually said that. And it never really meant anything to me. The site didn't mean anything to me. But once I was down, the site's huge. I don't know if you know Redcar at all. It's huge. So I've looked at the maps. It's like 13 miles long. So where John was working and Tommy, it's about 200 metres away from this gate. There's little gatehouses, etc. So when I was down there, I managed to speak to one of the security guys. And I still, where you work? I was working this day, but I was at Lackerby at the time, which is about 30 miles away, season all, with this all being blocked and locked. So, because where we were actually South Coast, that's where they were letting us in. So this is the entrance, it was blocked and locked because of like concrete and the gates were locked. I find that really very strange in a health and safety point of view, that 2 men were working a top tier coma site on very hazardous, dangerous area like ammonia scrubbers. So if anything happened, they needed emergency services to gain access for any reason. They couldn't get into that particular site, that area, and had to go 12 miles. So there was 7 or 8 vehicles deployed on that day, but the ones that turned up there, obviously nobody had informed the fire engines. By the way, only one entrance is now available to the entrance in the site. So they had to then make a detour another 12 miles. Now that's when I started realising how the feelings have even started on basic to me. I work in a care home. We can't even have a wheelchair or anything in the fire exit doors, let alone have main entrances blocked with concrete and locked. So it's not even a case of the fire engine has been able to use cutting gear to get through. They couldn't move the concrete. So things like that, I was like, I found that really hard to believe. Like simple things like that was missed. You would think when you're doing decommissioning and demolition that well, even if you broke your leg or something, you would need to say, well, where would the nearest, we need somebody to get access now, let alone fire. And then you find out things just by talking to people. On John's first anniversary, I was speaking to this man, Mr. Thompson, and he came down and he said, I was actually there when it happened. I said, all right. And he built this little thing for Tom and John, like a wooden thing, and a plaque on it, and we could put our wreaths in, because we go down every year, we play music, etc. And remembering John's anniversary, hopefully until we get some sort of justice. So this man was Peter Thompson, and he says to me, I was here, so do you want to come down and have a look at the plaque? I said, I couldn't go on that site ever again. And he was crying. He said, I was there, and just round the corner, says the two men came running round, and they said that they saw the fire, and they saw that the hydraulics exploding, through the heat, etc. And they were traumatised, so he gave them first aid, a hot sugary drink, etc. And he was just saying the noise, the whole place was going to blow up, can you imagine, like a jet engine, and then obviously the noise of the alarms. So I spoke to the police, I said, this man came to say about, I never had record him. I said, well, he seems to say there was two men there. Nobody knew anything about it, but eventually they did find these people, but you're talking about a year later, they said they never saw anything. So, but deviating away from that, so hearing this, I was told that they cut a gas pipe at first and there was an explosion. John wouldn't have seen it come in and it was instant. Right? That's what I was told. Then you start finding out, it wasn't a gas pipe, and they were using the oxyacetylene. No, John's on a platform operator. He's not got any experience at all in demolition. Oxyacetylene, and then the explosion started. There was a fire. And I got told, how can it be instant when people are shouting over for help? That's what I got told. John was shouting for help and he's trying to move the platform. That, again, I found out was very upsetting, as you can imagine. Because I'd rather find out everything now. So I'm now 3.5 years down the line. What else am I going to find out? It's going to put me right back. I need to know. I'm the type of person that needs to know everything now. Well, previously, I don't want to keep finding out things. I have to face up to what's happened to my husband. So then, I think what's happened, basically what I've been told, is there was obviously smoke and a fire, and they're shouting over it. So the incident wasn't instant, but his death probably obviously would have been. I've still not got a death certificate for John. They basically told me that John was killed through heat, extreme heat. So, I also believe that the water, the Bowsers didn't reach, but they weren't actually for that. That was for the debris on the ground. The actual water there was switched off. There was no water. But when I went down 6 weeks later, they had hoses, massive hoses going straight into the sea or river, whatever it is, near hand, because the fires were still burning 6 weeks later and underground, etc. And it just makes you the more I've been reading into things, that the site was actually set up, which is was South T site. Right? They've changed their name that much. I find it difficult to remember all the names. It was specifically set up, obviously, for the safety and the management of the steelworks. So the policy that they had in place, which I took a copy, was signed off on the 29th of August 2019. And the very first line said, we will ensure that everyone has the right to go home at the end of the day is in a safe and sound condition as when they arrive. And 21 days later, John and Tommy were killed. So I still don't know why they were killed. I don't know. I also know about the tendering. I found, there was 10 companies that did the tendering. Now it was obviously to do with decommissioning and demolition. And the cheapest being JF Hunt were 99,000, and the most expensive being technical demolition services were 338,000. But they were going to use coal cutting equipment, And I'm like, obviously it's a government-owned site now, so they've obviously got to try and think about the cost. But I'm also questioning, why would that be so expensive? Why the technical demolition services know to use coal cutting? Why did JF Hunt not know? And yet, when they actually bring these ammonia scrubbers down, I don't know what the cost must have been. It was Kelpie that were involved, and it was actually machines biting away at it. It must have cost a lot more than 99,000, as well as the deaths and everybody that's been involved in, the rescue team, everything. Almost, they were thinking actually evacuating nearby residents quite near at one point. Thankfully, that's not happened. And thankfully, no one else was killed on the site so far as the demolition's gone on. As with a top-tier coma site, I never knew anything about top-tier coma sites. I've researched a lot of it. And to me, when I went down there, it's the sort of place to me that was eerie, cold. You know, when you're a child, you wouldn't have want to enter that kind of site. It was creepy. You just knew danger. So I was really shocked that, you know, oxacetylene would have been used in vessels that were so, going to say, flammable. The one of the questions I got asked when John was killed, to the police interview, did John smoke? John's never didn't smoke. So they're asking if John smoked, but if you got the oxacetylene, you know, which is it's quite fascinating to understand a lot of it. And what I was going to say about the top tier coma site is, as you know, it's 13 miles long. There's the blast furnaces, everything's huge, and it's get flattened at such a rate. And yet, 2.5 years later, I'm still waiting on answers and explanations. And when you speak to people, all you hear is, "But these things take time." But why? I've asked the police. They would keep saying, "Oh, we're going to just to get statements. We'll go to statements at the end of the month." End of the month, 2 years later, they were still getting statements. I mean, what would people remember after 2 years is beyond me. And I said, "Is it to do with resources? You know, what's the problem?" No, it's just it's COVID. I don't know how many times I heard about COVID. Well, people have been murdered in the street and trialed and done and dusted in jail, and I'm still waiting on answers. My husband's been killed. It's absolutely no fault of his own. John was a platform operator. He done his job perfectly well. He did all his health and safety checks, like, you know, setting up the machine, blah, blah, blah. He went up there and he's never come home. And nobody can tell me why. But the site can be flattened, gone. And Ben Houchin, he sent us a letter when, when John was killed. But I've never actually met Ben, and he's in charge of the site. I thought he would have at least met the families, you know, to see that John was a real person. It's like but no, never met John. Never met Ben. Very busy. And I think obviously we're having sleepless nights with that pound deal. That is quite hard to take. That's what you're having sleepless nights, Ben, over your deal, pound deal. You don't try losing your wife. You know what sleepless nights are. I'm feeling a bit angry. I shouldn't. I need to calm down a bit.
You spent quite a bit of time on LinkedIn, and I know you've been following the trials and tribulations over Redcar. That's now more than 7 years. That can't give you a great deal of hope, I wouldn't think.
No. I can't understand why. Why does it take so long?
I wish I knew.
Give us answers. It's not until someone's killed. You know, when you hear it on the news, someone's killed, so, that's awful for their family. People think, oh, they'll be fine. But they don't realise the pain and suffering has just begun on the struggle to fight for answers. Now, there was that one there I was reading about, the women, the family, what was it,
Longanic, yeah.
Now, that was Brown and Mason that were involved in that, and they got fined £5,000. Now, they've also been fined over 2 million for their bid rigging, and yet someone's been killed at 5,000. And absolutely, what is the country? The British supposed to be UK, United Kingdom. What's happening here? You know, I just can't get over that. And I also was reading Karen's statements because it became a health and safety HSC inquiry investigation. They weren't even allowed to make a statement, a witness statement, family statement. If it had been a car crash or something, you can at least leave a statement. It's like the families are disregarded. Mm. And one thing I do want to say, the HSC, the guy John that we've been involved with, he has been so helpful. He's really helped, and every time I've asked him, why is it delays, he's always saying we're good to go, we're always good, we're waiting. He tries to get in touch with the police to set up meetings, nobody gets back to them. And it was dragging on. I says, but I know it's a police criminal investigation, don't understand that. And they're working side by side. And in fact, they're probably HSC have done a lot more of the work because of this being the kind of deaths, you know, with the chemicals, etc. But I can't understand how they don't have the powers to. They're there to fight for the working man, keep them safe, and companies next thing you know decide what. How they've not got the ability to say, or the powers to say to the police, listen, this is dragging on. You know, we're here for the working man, the family, someone's been killed there. What's taking so long? They were just wouldn't turn up for interviews, or delayed. I mean, I had to, one time the phone wasn't working, detective, his phone was missing. He then moved to Durham, didn't even say he'd moved there. He's changed his total email address and everything. The police communication has been such a struggle. Very disappointed with them, and actually really hurt that they let us down so badly.
You've mentioned communication a couple of times. Obviously John was employed by Nationwide, but this was a John F. Hunt site. What's been the communication from the two companies?
Initially, Nationwide obviously came down, came to see me, and there's the director came in. The police were in the background, my liaison officers, and I remember I thought they knew everything. They seemed really, you know, obviously said, they said it'd been a gas explosion, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. But that was all a load of rubbish. That's not what happened. And then they were saying, you know, we'll pay towards John's funeral. We'll give you, they gave me £2,000. John's funeral was over 10,000. Not that I'm really expecting them to pay for it, because, you know, I had my savings there, so, but they gave me some money, which was kind of them. But I feel the communication side, I felt like they went, there's one particular person, I don't know what I name names, but the person that was there kept going on about the machine, the actual platform. They didn't like that it being on site. Wanted that removed, because obviously that's Nationwide's name, and what was told is they won't be seeing name in court. Definitely won't be sitting across them in a courtroom. So obviously they didn't want the machine being there, because Nationwide, as if it was their fault. But to me, in my eyes, there was feelings on everybody's part. To me, things need to change. John was a platform operator, and you're obviously working, you know what a platform operator does. 1 minute he could be working, taking a surveyor up on the roof. He could be working with cameras. He could be working hanging over the bridge, you know, like Forster Bridge, 2 o'clock in the morning. So to me, to be get a postcode and a time isn't good enough when you've got a job. That's not acceptable to me. That to me needs to change. Because John would often, sometimes you had an idea on working for communications outside the wind farm things, you know. And then one time, he Googled that Street View, and it was a house. I thought, I wonder what I'm going to be doing there. But next again, he says, the house had actually been on fire, and I was taking a surveyor up. So you would really just get a postcode and a time. So I did ask when John went down there, you know, they didn't get training, they got induction. That's no training on that site. And I said, so what sort of, was it ever a mention in this information or whatever induction that was a top tier coma site? And I was told, no, that's what the HSC told. But I really feel that should really be in your, you know, about a top tier. Because if you don't work in the industry, how do you know what top tier, how do you know about demolition? Because John was here to assist any customer that needed to be taken up safely to height. That was what his job was. A lot of the times, platform operators are lone workers. They work on their own. And a lot of the times, it's the culture thing to help the person you're working with. Obviously, you're not going to just stand in it. It's one thing. So he was obviously helping Tommy, etc. And I know there was a fire extinguisher, and then I believe they went to get... Obviously, there was only one witness, the bikesman on the ground. Which, another thing, I'm still not happy personally. If you're in the middle of the site and there's only one banksman on the ground who didn't work for Nationwide platforms, you've got Tommy and you've got John up in the basket, and they're shouting over help, right? I know it was quick, right, but still shouting over. So there was an element, oh my God, shit, there's fighting for their lives. Now the banksman on the ground, how well was he trained to put out fires and deal with a machine at the same time? Do you know what I mean? Should there not really be 2 people there? But really, rather than John himself? I mean, what about having a heart attack? How are they going to get them down? Because if you actually look at the explosion, a lot of John's the platform wasn't really damaged, just near the end of the room. If somebody could have got them down quick enough, highly unlikely, but it's just things that go through your mind. Do you know what I mean? Go through your mind. What safeties were really taken? What was there to keep my husband safe doing his job and Tommy? How? I don't know what safeties were put in place because nobody's telling me anything. It's just things I'm trying to find out myself. I wanted to sign up for an iPath training course, the scissor lifting, etc. I wanted to do all that. And I also wanted to do a health and safety, the fire thing. But whether or not, I actually ended up with subarachnoid hemorrhage. Last week was February before. I was so stressed with all the police and fighting all the time. You can't prove that's what caused it. So I had a bleed in the brain. I ended up in hospital, almost died. I was then off my work again, so I ended up first time in my life on benefits for just about 2 months. I was getting £321, and I asked the site if they could possibly help me financially, but obviously nobody's got to help you, because if they do, they then feel they're going to be made liable. So and they're admitting fault. But really, it's never been all about kindness. I said, you've got your. I said, what about that chap, the one that's Middlesbrough? Is he's got lots of money? Can I give me a wee backhand and I'll pay him back when I get a settlement? Do you know what I mean? But no, unfortunately, people. I can understand in a sense. People are worried about seeing you come forward because they thought, we're going to get blamed. But at the time, they really just want help in a lot of ways, support financially, emotionally, just a bit of compassion or empathy. But I understand why companies also shut up because, because they're obviously advised by their lawyers, etc. as well. Listen, blah, blah, blah. But it's hard being on the receiving end, losing somebody you love at work. On anyway, do you know what I mean? But I just kind of got over that John went to work, he was hard work, and he was killed. Oh, another thing about communications that I found really hurtful. 8 weeks after John was killed, I received a health and safety pack, right? And it was all, they had done like a big health and safety thing. It was like drawings that kids had done. It was in the like we are being safe, help. And it was all about people going home safely. And I addressed it to John. And it was actually the man that had been sitting in my house 8 weeks previous, he had signed the bottom of it. And obviously, when I phoned my son, because obviously I was in tears, to seeing it all, we're being safe. Was my John not being safe, like, do you know, etc. You're very emotional, you've lost your husband, you're in that, you were sensitive to anything. So my son phoned and spoke to it was Holly at the time. And she didn't immediately say, I'm really sorry that's happened. Oh, it's getting an oversight. It's just been computer generated. Do you know what I mean? Really? And that was it.
I realise finance is not, it's got absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with it. But you've just said, you're just moving into a new house. Obviously, dual income, that's how you're affording to live there and everything else. And you've had that taken away. And here we are 3 and a bit years later. How are you getting by?
Do you know how I'm getting by? My family. Because I did have 2 jobs, as I said. I was at an agency. Like, John was in at 40,000 a year, right? I had my wages. I was doing extra. Obviously, I just couldn't face any extra. I just didn't feel able. I'm just not the same person. So I still have to keep my job on. And my family helped me. That's how I manage. And through obviously, my mortgage got paid off, so I don't have a mortgage. Obviously with John being killed with the life savings insurance, so that was being paid off. But people say, "Oh, you've not got a mortgage." I've still got everything else. You know what I mean? I've lost John's wages, and also when John was killed, they give you 2.5 years, but actually John got 2 years salary. Now, as a platform operator, they all have to work overtime. You can't just work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You have to work. So John's basic wage was 22,500. John wouldn't have worked just for that. That's why he did, they have to go here. So 40,000. So when I got 44,000 2 years. I says, well, that's just basic, John been killed, he didn't just die. And he went, oh, well, it is a bit unfair, but that's just what it says in the policy. I says, but in your policy, it says if someone was killed in a catastrophe, which to me, John was killed in a catastrophe. If he had died peacefully in his bed at home, they would have got that. Any employee, but he was killed. Well, there's got to be more than 2 people killed for the same policy. But they work on their own. It's a platform what very rarely does it. So I says, really, your policy's null and void. So I obviously wasn't happy about it. No, so just about the money, but I'm like, a lot of Johns, I spoke to some of the people I work with, thought I were insured for about 250,000. I went, sorry, I think you should get yourself some policies out in case you die, because it's a very risky job what you do. You're hanging over bridges at 2 o'clock in the morning and traffic flying past you, pouring the rain. I says, anything could happen but clipped or anything, as you know. In fact, there was an incident with John, was actually in one of them on the platforms the year previous, and it was in Grange Mouth. Right, and what happened is he came home and he said to me, the boom, it was right round, and this is the way it went. And when he was up with a customer, it just dropped like that. The basket tilted. Honestly, he says, what a fright. Him and the other customers got such a fright. So he took it back to the depot and explained to it. Oh, no, it'll be fine. So the engineers went in and they did the exact same, and it did it again. So I had to then go down to England. And what it was is, when the boom was in this position all the way around, it kinked the hydraulic hose, which caused the, do you know what I mean, to happen. So that was a risk. And you were also in a chemical gas works here. And then obviously just hanging over bridges or anything, you're at risk. So it can be done safely, but there's always ways you could be killed in that job. And to me, a company like Nationwide Platform, Loxam, huge, they've had one person killed and they only gave me that. But I did get another £20,000 off them, they said, as an ex-agasha, because obviously they did think it was wrong that the policy didn't cover. So in that sense, it was kind of them to do that.
You're meeting up for the Workers' Memorial.
Yes.
What does that give to you as a widow?
As a widow, I feel over the years, at least there has been improvement with people, being killed. And that's comfort to see that when somebody has been killed, if there's been an improvement, there's been changes, you think, well, at least somebody's not just died needlessly. There's other people that you go there, you hear their stories, but at the same time, you're also like, nothing's changed when it comes to the length of time. That's what I find really hard. Why are we having to accept this in 2023, 3 years, 7 months? The files went to the CPS in end of November, right? Now, I looked it up, it normally takes 30 working days that the CPS will get back to. Obviously, it's a totally different case. Eventually, I got in touch with them, what's happening, I got in touch with the police. That's another thing, they never get in touch with you. You got to email them, and a week or two later, you'll get a message back. It's difficult. So we're now waiting on more reports from the HSC. Another 3 reports getting made. Hopefully it'll be done by the end of this week. Then we'll have to wait on a CPS decision to see where it goes from here. But we will fight all the way to see what happens.
What is it that you want? Obviously, there is no magic wand that can bring John back.
Well,
if you could change something that meant that John's death was less in vain, what would it be?
I would like for health and safety side it to change. Like for John's work, exactly. They are great with health and safety when it comes to customers and everything. They have got a really good record. John loved working for Nationwide Platforms. He loved his job. But I think they need to still always look at like the feelings. Like, to me, they didn't send a surveyor out. They don't do that because there's too many jobs apparently. But when it comes up to something like a top tier coma site, they need to recognise that's something different from going up at that roofing a survey. That needs to be more attentive to what's our employee. You can't have a company without your workers, right? So you need to keep them safe. You have no company without your workers. So to me, there should be valued that for whatever they're going, they should be checking out when it's a special job. Like, well, what is it? Well, that's a steelworks or blah blah. Right? What's going to be involved? What's certain things should be followed. As for the actual steelworks, I think I really don't know how they can sort out the feelings for that, because I really don't know what the feelings really were. I'm still waiting to, obviously I'll know what I found out, but I don't know why it happened. So I can't really say what they could change. Then obviously once I find out the information, but what I have found out needs to be changed. But I don't know. you've worked in that industry. I'm sure what I've told you, a lot of things must kind of raise some sort of answers in your head.
One of the things that I know, having spoken to some of the families of the guys that were killed at Didcot, is they kind of felt forgotten, because Didcot came down. They ended up just building houses and schools and whatever else.
Yes.
That's exactly what's happening up there. You know, Ben Houchin, I mean, I don't know Ben Houchin from Adam, but, you know, I know he's on TV a lot talking about, you know, the gigafactory that's going to be there and the employment and everything else, which is great, and I'm sure that's great for the local economy. But it's happening on a location where 2 people were needlessly killed.
Yes. And so we're still waiting on answers, and nobody's investing in that first. Do you know what I mean? I would like them to, you know, realise that people have been killed there, recognise they've been killed there. This is how insensitive I feel they were. When we went down for the anniversary, they were told there's going to be some explosions on the site. I'm aware the site's huge and things have got to go on. That's absolutely fine. But when I got there, they actually were bringing down the Donner Wall, which is about 100 metres away from John was killed. They actually brought down on John's anniversary and Thomas' anniversary. I'm thinking, how insensitive is that? It's like, you know, that my husband was killed here, blown up, basically, dying, and you couldn't have done it on the Monday. You had to do it because it had to come down no matter what. Did it really have to come down that day? Did it not come down? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I'm with you there. Families feel forgotten. You also feel it's this struggle. It's like she's a disgruntled widow. They're all, come on, it's nearly 3 years now. These things take time, calm down. Do you know what I mean? That's it. You feel you're a bother. You know what I mean? And they didn't realise what it's like to, until someone loses someone that they love, doesn't matter who it is, they will all then feel the pain. And they're just making pain and suffering worse. And then they start to get angry. I don't want to get angry. I've got enough emotions to deal with. Just treat your workers and the people and keep them safe. Say, listen, we don't know what's happened, but we'll do our best to find out. Obviously, they could say it's an accident. There's probably that many feelings that should have been done this. But people are accountable. They have to just do the worst mistakes, mate. Don't they all just shove it all, go away, go away. And I just feel like the longer they drag it out, people forget who Tommy and Don were. You know, you guys, enough, they were killed here, lie, what happened? They were in the local either, so I feel that also made, I didn't want a local mental health. This is one was Scotland, one was doing there. So that's how I feel as well. Nice that they have an International Memorial Workers' Day, because it doesn't matter how long ago it is, people never will ever forget who was killed, their father, their uncle, their best friend. It's nice to recognise that people been killed through work or killed at work, and never to forget, and to like what they say, John's not got a voice, he's gone, I'm his voice now until I get some sort of justice or answers or something. But I just think I think I'll just keep putting me off and dragging it on, and really, what can I really do to try and stop it for dragging on? Apart from maybe going, I've been to this, I've had interviews on the television, I've done, you'd only remember for that day, then you like to see your news is gone. You know, if only I could change, if someone else has killed it, why does it take so long? Why do I have to drag it on?
And I've mentioned Didcot a couple of times, and I apologise for that, but having been through the experience of that.
Better than that, I can't imagine what they've been through. Do you know what? I did read about them, and I noticed like there was obviously men that witnessed it. Horrific. They were involved in it, involved in some of the rescue. Now they've obviously received compensation, etc. Good for everything that's done. But does that mean that the families are like, if I have children, thank goodness I've not, what would happen? How would I be managing? At least if I've not got children, you know, I've got my family. How by the time you get any financial support, you could have committed suicide by then. Do you know what I mean? It's mental stress. No.
It's interesting. I mean, you mentioned sort of best friends. That's one of the things I think that gets overlooked. And I'm guilty of this. You know, when I've been talking about all these incidents over the years, You know, I tend to think, oh, it was somebody's son, and it was somebody's husband, and somebody's father. What about the brothers, the sisters, the nieces, the nephews, the aunts, the uncles, the best friends, the guy down the pub that misses him? You know, it is so far-reaching. You know, you touch a lot of lives, and I'm sure, you know, John was up and down the country doing his thing. You know, I'm sure he had hobbies as well as being married as well. You touch an awful lot of lives, you know, and all of those will have been impacted.
Exactly, that's the thing. There was obviously a well over 500 people at his funeral, and there was, you know, he was part of the community. John was largely, I mean, if you ever speak to anybody from Nationwide that knew John, they say what a lovely guy he was. He'd always go when people always say, oh, when somebody's died, a lovely guy. He was a fantastic husband. He adored his mum. His mum, she's got 3 children. John was the youngest, he was born on Christmas Day. That was a golden boy. His dad's passed away, so he's never seen that John's got justice. His mum's got cancer. Since our son's been killed, she has went downhill. She's broken-hearted as well. Do you know what I mean? His sister, it's like all our lives. It's the impact and then the fallout. It's someone that you love. His best friend, since he was 5-year-old. He's went through a lot. You know, but John had never had a birthday party because his birthday was on Christmas. So we had got them any more time to play at our wedding, and I said, well, I loved them. I was going to get them to play for your 50th. And it was the beginning of he said, nobody will come. I said, listen, if we book the party now, which was January, give them plenty notice, they'll come, because obviously we're going to have it like on the 29th or something in December that year. So I managed to book them, but they were on the television, they won the competition, they're not going to play at my party. However, you know, they're great guys. So but what happened was, obviously John got killed in September, but I still went ahead with this party. You know, everybody came. It was very emotional, but John, he loved to dance, he loved to sing. Everybody came. You know, it was in the Men in Motown, everything. Very emotional, but it was good but we never want to forget the people that have gone. We want to remember them. We talk about them. I've got on my photo my granddaughter. That was John's granddaughter, but I've got where photos are up there. She's now 9. She'll still go, Mackay. You know what I mean? Like you say, there's so many people. My family, you know, we're only married to John a couple of years, now 10 years. My son's got, they're still really close to their own father, but John was such a lovely man that they fell in love with him. And like one of my sons, he got tattoos down there, like say it's in Roman numerals of the date John was killed, and down there he used to call him Boy Wonder, and he's got that down there. He's a barber and tattoos, so he can get away with something like that. But family, you see that impact to losing somebody, especially you see when you go to work, you're like, John was such a hard-working man. He was so hard-working, you're like, go to work and you're killed. It's hard to take. You must have obviously met a lot of people in your time, friends, think that be killed in the industry.
Too many. Too many. And obviously it's your husband, so, you know, the day would stand out. But do you know one of the things that is really common with this? I've got a good friend who, he owned a company, and a guy was killed on one of his sites. And he could tell you exactly where he was, what time it was, what the weather was like, you know, what he had for lunch that day and everything else, because it just leaves a scar.
When John was killed, you obviously, you know, that everybody's coming to your house, and it's amazing how you find it. I was trying to put a brave face on for everybody because I knew they were coming to see me, and you could see they were filled with tears, and I thought I'd have to be strong, because if they see me and they're going to be worse. So I'm saying, everything's, a lot of it, you just, because you don't believe what's really happening, you keep thinking John's going to come through, don't you? But tell them all about this. You know, you think, I've been to mediums and everything, and although you're like, oh, but that's all the rubbish, something, you're Googling it, part of you thinks you're going to feel their presence, that you're just searching because you miss them so much. You're just wanting to know, where are they? What happens when you die? Your mind goes over loads of things. What happened? How could I stop them going down? Well, you know, nothing you can do. Life goes on, and life's for the living, and you've just got to try and, if any good can come at this, is other people helping the safety's change, other people can be killed, then it's something, isn't it? What else is there? You can't bring John and Tommy back. You can only just talk about them and keep them alive by talking about John and share memories, and we're very much a happy family. They will laugh about things. I would have tears, but we remember we're privileged that we knew John, that John loved me and he was in my life. And that I'm very grateful for.